Hello, everybody. It's Friday. That means it's time for another topic of the week. So, first things first, last week's topic on 2018 releases you're hoping to see. Lots of good responses there. I think many people were in agreement with me, and many people had some other things. I think we're all hoping there's a couple things that rose high to the top of the list. None of them were surprising. A lot of people are interested to see what death comes out of Malign Portents. A lot of people are very excited to see something happen with elves. But there were, of course, other requests as well. I'm personally most hopeful for something new. That is to say, I want to know what, if we get a new army, what would that look like? Like, what's our Caradhran overlords for this year, or whatever. I think time will tell on that. But, since that was last week's topic, I thought we'd segue right into the first release of this year, which is the new Nurgle release. So, the new Nurgle release, we've got the Battle Tome coming as well as some new kits. We've got some updates to a lot of old stuff. Obviously, there was the whole 7 days of Nurglemas and all of that. And so, Nurgle has always been an interesting thing for me, as I despise him as a god. It's a personal thing. I just don't like the dirty, gross, filthy, diseasey thing. That's my humble opinion only. It means nothing. The reality is I think he's good as a character in the world. I think disease is a scary thing, and I think it's fun to make him a fun guy, because he is such a horrible god. Like, that is to say, what he represents is something that still is a part of all of our lives. And so, if he was dead serious and all about disease and pestilence, he'd be not only uninteresting, but just sort of repugnant. But the fact that he is a sort of comical character, that he brings with him a sort of dark humor, I quite enjoy. On a deeper level than that, I really like that the model range, especially the Nurgle demons, I think is actually a great model range for new players. I see a lot of people paint him. I think the model range is very friendly both to new painters, because you can do things like paint the whole thing with washes and have it look, really good and kind of grimy and appropriate. But you can also take him to an incredible level, as David Soper has proved, winning 2 Slayer Swords basically 2 years in a row on Nurgle models. I remember famously, Tyler Mingle has a great Plagueberry unit that he had won a Golden Demon with many years back. So there's just lots of options across the board with them. You can do both incredible things, like having them look weathered and dirty and wounded and bloody and pussy and whatever. And that's fine. You can be very detail-oriented with that, or you can just kind of be slapdash and paint them in a more sort of filthy style, and it still looks appropriate. So they're a fascinating range because they work in both ways. I don't think that's true for every range. You look at something like High Elves or something like that, or whatever they're going to be. You look at the Elves, and, in their previous, current, whatever you want to say, incarnation, I think when they were really dirty and grimy or something, they just didn't look right. I think they had this sort of, they almost needed to look clean and crisp, and so they were actually a pretty difficult army to paint, especially if you're a new player. Whereas Nurgle, you can apply very basic techniques to and get something awesome. So that's kind of this week's topic. I want to talk. It's all about Nurgle this week. I want to know, what do you think of the new releases? Are you excited for the new kits? What do you think of the mechanics that have been spoiled? The story that's been spoiled? I think it's really interesting that they're going to use Nurgle as one of the foils of death. Like, clearly death is on the march here. Nagash is planning some stuff. I think it's interesting to have the life opponent of death not be Alariel or Sylvaneth, which would have been an easy grab, or something like that, but instead use the sort of twisted god of life, who still has a very good reason to hate Nagash. Classically, they've been, like, that's been a nice little juxtaposition, opposition of a very interesting thing, of sort of both who are bad, but have good reasons to hate each other. So I've always thought that was a fascinating sort of narrative move to pair those up. So I like that we're starting off this way, with that life being represented by this fouling force. One of the things I've always found fascinating about Nurgle is that he just wants life, and he has no particular care of any kind. So, like, it's more about the counting, and you see that in all the Taliban and all the counting of things, that, like, to him, creating 1 million bacteria or whatever, or all these fungus or gross things, are worth a lot more than one singular human being, right? That sort of foul disease that spreads gives birth to a ton of new life as he sees it. So I've always thought that was an interesting sort of take on how the worldview of that Chaos God. So What do you think of Nurgle in general? Are you excited for the new model range? Is it inspiring you to give your soul over to Grandfather Nurgle and maybe start up a new army? That's what I want to talk about this week. Drop your comments down below. Of course, as always, if you make a response video, link me on that, and I'll throw that down in the comments, or down in the description, rather. As always, you can always come back to this video to see all the response videos. But I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.